So we're very fortunate to have Stephanie with us today. Stephanie Judson is our President and CEO here at the Foundation. And today she's going to be sharing an overview of 2022 and the year ahead for the Foundation. She's held various positions here since 1997, and she's actually going into her 10th year as our president. Her work includes working directly with our board and oversight of our strategic vision, donor relations, and grant program development. She's a certified financial planner and a certified gift planning associate, which assists in her work with donors and nonprofits, helping them find the best plan giving options for them. She enjoys connecting with people who want to leave the state better than they found it and are committed to giving back to the places that they've called home. So thank you for being with us, Stephanie.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Jamie. It's so nice to see so many friendly faces. I do recognize the irony that we are delivering the State of the Foundation address in the same evening that the State of the Union address will be delivered. But I make two promises. There'll be no political overtones, and this will be much shorter than tonight's speech. I just really thank so many people for tuning in to the State of the Foundation Lunch and Learn. Our staff does an amazing job of coordinating over a wide variety of lunch and learn topics throughout the year. So despite whether or not you find today's presentation informative or helpful for you, if you don't, I do hope you will turn into some future lunch and learns, as they're always proven to be great subject matter. So let's get started on some topics that I want to share with you. We had an exciting 2022. It was our 35th anniversary, and we celebrate our 35th anniversary throughout the year. I also want to share with you some board member updates. We had some changes at our last board meeting. Also have some grant making news for you. We'll talk about the launch of the Freedom Scholarship this year, talk about development numbers and an update for you in 2022. As well as the financial update for the year, and remind all of our donors and our nonprofit partners of our long-term investment objectives. And then I want to wrap things up with some recent legislation that impacts some sectors of our donors. So we'll wrap up with a Washington update. So if I want to keep my promise that this will be done earlier than tonight's State of the Union address, we better get started. So to commemorate our 35th anniversary, we hosted an event in Pierre along with our October board meeting that was held at the end of October. We invited current and former board members and members of our Legacy Society. We reflected on our past. We celebrated the importance of challenge grants as a catalyst in philanthropy. Of course, the Community Foundation had our origin stemmed from challenge grants from the Ignite Foundation and the 3M Corporation back in 1987. We were successful in meeting a $5 million challenge that was posed by those two entities. And so with our $10 million endowment, that seeded our South Dakota Fund, which is our competitive grant making program. We're going to talk more about that later. In 1987, we celebrated our 10th anniversary by launching our own challenge grant program, really aimed at increasing the capacity of South Dakota communities. You'll hear more about our community savings account program later in the presentation, but it's in support of our flagship program that our board and staff announced the Vision 35 campaign, a permanent funding source for our community savings account efforts. We're launching a $3.5 million goal that will allow us to continue to invest in communities both now and long into the future. We celebrated the evening with Bob Sutton making an announcement that Avera's Community Benefit Fund would launch the effort with a $350,000 gift. Since that time, we had commitments from the Gail and Dolores Miller Charitable Fund of over $1.2 million in matching funds. When we're successful in raising the $3.5 million, we'll have $150,000 available every year in challenge dollars just for our communities across South Dakota. Our October board meeting also saw some transitions in our board. Unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to 3 outstanding board members. Charlie Hart from Rapid City served on our board for 9 years. He served on the Resource Development Committee, the Board Development Committee, and most recently on our Grant Making Committee. Mari Larson served on our board for 2 terms on our grant making committee. And Stanley Porch served on our resource development committee and our land management task force. We're going to miss their friendly faces, their wealth of knowledge, and promise to stay in touch with them and keep them close to the foundation. We also welcomed 3 new board members. Marcy Burdick from Rapid City joined our board, as well as Linda Erickson from Sioux Falls and Don Roby from Watertown. They were elected in the October board meeting and started their term this January. We look forward to working with all 3 of our new board members as they round out a board of 20 members that represent the entire state of South Dakota. I have a feeling that several of you participating in today's webinar want to know more about our grant programs. Many of you have been successful applicants in the past or may be interested in applying. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to highlight our grant programs, distinguish the differences, and talk more about how you can access these opportunities. The South Dakota Fund, as I mentioned earlier, is our longest standing competitive grant making program. We've been making grants from the South Dakota Fund for over 34 years. We accept applications throughout the year. It's an ongoing process. In 2022, we awarded $660,000 from the South Dakota Fund. The grants range from $2,000 to $20,000 and are made in the areas of economic development, health, human services, education, and cultural programs. Our nonprofit savings account program is also a competitive grant making program. It is designed to help nonprofits build an endowment to support their mission long term. We awarded $140,000 in 2022. It's a matching grant program that allows $1 for every $4 raised up to $20,000. You're going to be hearing more about organizations that have embarked on our nonprofit savings account program a little bit later in our presentation. And then, of course, the big news for grant making here at the Community Foundation was the launch of the Beyond Idea Grant Program. This is a partnership with the Bush Foundation. Several of you are aware that we had a longstanding relationship with the Bush Foundation through their Community Innovation Grant Program that lasted nearly 9 years. The community-based problem-solving grants was a new opportunity to partner with them in making a larger investment in South Dakota. They're offering $1.2 million a year to the South Dakota Community Foundation for 6 years for us to support community-based problem-solving grants here in South Dakota. These grants will range from $5,000 to $100,000. Ginger Neiman, our senior program officer, and her team, accompanied by Crystal Ortbahn, pulled together the stakeholders from around South Dakota to really design what this program would look like. We knew we wanted to make a bigger impact in South Dakota and enhance community problem solving across the state. Our inaugural round in 2022 was a huge success. We received 133 applications requesting $10.6 million. We awarded 14 grants totaling $1.2 million. We will award 2 rounds in 2023. The dates will open March 1st for 1 month and August 1st for 1 month, and $1.2 million will be awarded again in 2023. Our scholarship program has also grown considerably here at the Community Foundation. The South Dakota Community Foundation has 320 individual scholarship funds that we administer. Those funds award $600,000 or more annually. The criteria and the selection committees vary for these scholarships. Kelly Nelson, our scholarship manager, administers all 320 of these individual scholarship funds. She works directly with the high schools, with the universities, and with the financial aid offices to make sure that these dollars are awarded correctly based on the criteria and the selection committees established by the donors. We also have a partnership with the South Dakota Education Access Foundation that supports needs-based scholarships and other educational programs for institutions here in South Dakota. They award roughly $2.2 million annually in needs-based scholarships. And an advisory board sets the criteria and the objectives for these scholarships. We also have a partnership with the Build Dakota Scholarship Program and the Freedom Scholarship Program. They are both public-private partnerships. The Build Dakota Scholarship Program supports technical education in high-need workforce areas as determined by the Department of Labor. The Build Dakota Scholarship Program awards $5 million annually, and it requires a 3-year work commitment in South Dakota. It's overseen by a governor-appointed board that sets the criteria. And it could convert to a loan if the obligation to not stay in South Dakota or to complete the program are not met. The Freedom Scholarship Program is also a needs-based scholarship program for public and private schools in South Dakota. The Freedom Scholarship Program awards $5 million annually. It also requires a 3-year work commitment in South Dakota and is overseen by a governor-appointed board. The Freedom Scholarship would also convert to a loan if the obligations are not met. As you can see, we invest significant assets in South Dakota through these scholarship funds. But we also have a number of other funds that we work with communities, donors, and other organizations to establish. Here's a snapshot of our development efforts in 2022. Our development team established 82 new funds. Those consist of agency-endowed funds, community and nonprofit savings account, designated funds, donor-advised funds, and scholarship funds. In fact, our accounting and finance team recorded over 3,500 individual gifts to the funds that we manage. We completed a variety of both standard and complex gifts totaling nearly $80 million. I lift this up because it's important to point out that the Community Foundation does have the expertise to accept a variety of types of gifts, ranging from cash, stock, land, and tangible personal property. We work to make the process very seamless and efficient, which benefits not only the donor, but also the nonprofit that the donor wants to work with. So for donors who might be listening today, if you have appreciated assets that you want to use to fund your charitable work, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. For nonprofits on today's webinar, if you're working with a donor who might be signaling to you that they have some assets that they'd like to contribute, and you might not have the means of accepting those gifts, please give a member of our development team a call. We'd be happy to work with your donor to facilitate that gift for your benefit. Our community savings account partnerships continue to grow. As I mentioned earlier, our community savings account program was launched 25 years ago in conjunction with our 10-year anniversary, when we announced the first 10 communities to receive a challenge grant from the South Dakota Community Foundation. Since then, we have worked with 85 communities across South Dakota, and our community savings account endowed assets have grown to over $45 million. Last year, more than $2.8 million was given to the community savings accounts in 2022. And in fact, our community savings accounts awarded over $1.6 million back in their communities. That consisted of 561 grants to local nonprofit and charitable causes. Our community savings accounts are overseen by a local board of directors who are making determinations on who are receiving those funds on an annual basis. We had 5 communities that met their challenge in 2022. The communities of Columbia, Faith, Gregory, Jones County, and New Underwood successfully completed their challenge grants and got their matching dollars from the South Dakota Community Foundation. We have currently 6 communities that are still in a challenge. Those include Aberdeen, Arlington, Armour, Burke, Harding County, and Willow Lake. The South Dakota Community Foundation is really committed to enhancing our community savings account program, ensuring that communities across South Dakota have access to unrestricted assets that they can award in their communities. Not only is it important to invest in our communities, but it's also important to give other people the vehicle to invest in their own communities. Our nonprofit savings account was really born out of the same concept of our community savings account, or as our community savings account, excuse me. We have 29 current nonprofit savings account partners. We announced our program back in 2013. It was through the generosity of Paul and Muffy Kristen who endowed a fund that would allow us the challenge grant dollars available to make these grants to nonprofits across the state. Since that time, we've awarded $580,000 in challenge grants. We had 3 nonprofit partners meet their challenge grants in 2022. Those were the South Dakota Railroad Museum, Leadership South Dakota, Love Inc. of the Black Hills. We have 6 ongoing challenges with Post 22 Baseball, Meals on Wheels Western South Dakota, the Northern Prairies Lands Trust, the Groundworks and South Dakota Ag in the Classroom, Harriet Area Housing Development, and Stavig House Museum. We are very proud to partner with these nonprofits as they work to raise money to benefit their entity and their mission long into the future. Growth in assets have added considerably to our financials as well as to our grant making impact. Growth in assets from 2006 when we were just $80 million to 2022 when we were just short of $800 million. Much of this growth has really just happened in the last few years. In fact, from 2020 to 2022, we saw an increase of over $400 million in assets at the foundation. What a testament to the generosity of people living in South Dakota. More importantly, this growth has allowed our grant distributions to increase as well, from about $3.5 million in 2006 to nearly $30 million in 2022 alone. These numbers really speak to the power of endowment. As the assets grow, so does our grant making impact. It certainly cannot ignore the decrease in assets that we saw from 2021 to 2022, a result, of course, in market fluctuations. But we saw losses of just over 10%. We actually feel good about our investment performance as it compares to the broader indices and to our peers. And we are assisted by the long-term objectives of our investment strategy. We have 3 objectives in our investment strategy. First and foremost is to protect the overall integrity of our donors' gifts. Second, we want to provide a steady stream of income to those who benefit from the funds invested with us. So our trailing 16-quarter average smooths out the gains and losses that can be experienced in the market, allowing for a steady stream of income to support our communities, our charities, and educational institutions that benefit from the funds that we manage. And last, we want to provide an increase in the fund's value over time. Our distribution rate, combined with our investment strategy and our efficient operation, allow for fund growth over time. As the fund grows, so do the grants and the support to the nonprofits and charities. I reserved the last slide to mention recent legislation that may impact some of our donors, and that is the Secure Act 2.0. It has several provisions, and I won't bore you with all the details. I would encourage individuals to reach out and certainly consult with your accountants and other financial advisors over the finer points of the Secure Act. But I want to make sure I highlight a couple that pertain to a base of our donors. And first are those who use their IRA assets to accomplish their charitable work. The Secure Act 2.0 does change the minimum distribution age for those IRA assets. It increases it from 72 to 73. You'll recall originally this threshold was 70 and a half before an individual was required to take distributions from their IRAs. While now individuals don't have to take distributions from their IRAs until they're 73, they still can start taking distributions for charity, which we call the Qualified Charitable Distribution, or QCD, at 70 and a half. The IRA QCD allows individuals age 70 and a half or older to take up to $100,000 a year and roll it directly over to charity. This is a great tool to not recognize the income from their IRA and to fund their charitable goals. And then when they do reach that 73 required minimum distribution age, it's a great way to make sure that they're meeting that distribution requirement. An enhancement of the Secure 2.0 allows for a one-time transfer of $50,000 from an IRA to a charitable remainder trust or a charitable gift annuity. In this case, charitable remainder trusts are a less likely tool given the threshold, that $50,000 threshold. That amount is not likely to cause an individual donor to go through the time, the expense of setting up a separate trust and paying for the ongoing administration of it. But a charitable gift annuity can be an excellent tool as a way to increase income over the donor's lifetime, or maybe a specific beneficiary that the donor would like to name. And then the remaining amount can go to charity. The good news here is that the South Dakota Community Foundation does offer charitable gift annuities. So if you're a donor that would meet that requirement at 70.5 or older, and you'd like to learn more about our charitable gift annuity program to benefit yourself or another beneficiary, please give us a call. If you're a nonprofit that's tuning in today and you have someone who might benefit from a charitable gift annuity and would like to partner with us, we'd be happy to visit with you and your donor about how a gift annuity could work to benefit both them and your organization. This concludes my presentation for today's Lunch and Learn, but I would be happy to open things up for any questions or any comments that anyone might have. And again, I just want to thank everyone for participating. It's great to see so many of you out there. I see some comments and some questions in the chat. So I'll turn things over to Jamie and we can open up things for questions. Thanks again.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. And yeah, everyone is on mute right now, but if you would like to ask a question, please feel free to unmute yourself. I do know that in our chat box here, we did have a question about minimum amount to establish a scholarship fund at the foundation. And the answer to that is we will start a fund at any amount, but the minimum for a scholarship before we will allow spendable dollars out of that is $25,000. So do we have any other questions for Stephanie?
Yeah, Jamie, this is Carmen Timmerman. I put a question in the chat room.
Yeah, okay. Let me grab that quick. Is that further back?
So you had a question about the scholarships, Carmen, and that really depends on how the donors establish the scholarships. So some of our scholarships are targeted for graduates of certain high schools. And in those cases, we work directly with the high school to award based on the selection criteria that the donor has established. But we have other scholarships that are open to students throughout the state to apply for very specific opportunities. And yes, we have a relationship with the guidance counselors, both in high schools as well as the financial aid officers across South Dakota in our institutions. So we're able to disseminate information about our scholarships to all the institutions of higher education as well as our high schools. And Kelly Nelson really manages those relationships with our high schools and our financial aid officers. Does that answer your question, Carmen?
I'll get in touch with Kelly specifically. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Carmen.
You bet.
Any other questions for Stephanie? Oh, I have one coming in through the chat box here. Callie asks, is there any overarching impact the BIG grants hope to see in South Dakota?
A great question, Callie. Good to see you on the call. So these are community-based grants that are really hoping to address problems that communities are facing. And there are a series of metrics that will be evaluated throughout the grant making program that will allow us to measure the impact of the community based grants. And so we work together, Ginger and Crystal work together with intermediaries in our other states. And we'll work to get information out on the impact that these grants are having long term. It was really exciting to see the number of applications and the interest in this first round. I know Ginger and Crystal were out in Rapid City yesterday with Beth, and they did a good grants guidance workshop that had great attendance and a lot of great questions. And they actually were able to conduct some one-on-one conversations with individuals who are looking to access our grant making programs and learn more about them. So we just know that the continued pool of requests will be even stronger in the year ahead.
Stephanie, I'd like to make a comment. I am very impressed with the overall expansiveness and total coverage of the entire state in bringing in so many different organizations and bringing an awareness in a very detailed way and a heartwarming way to enhance and enrich the opportunities for people to give, to provide the substantial assets that you're looking for, as well as the growth, overall future growth. And it gives us a lot of faith and confidence.
Well, thanks, Rick. I appreciate your kind comments. I have to give credit to the board that we all get to work with. I shared some of those changes earlier in my presentation, but success for an organization that we've had, or I can really attribute to a couple of things. And one is a commitment to planned giving and making sure that we continue to give people opportunities to invest in the future of our state. And so when an organization is 35 years old, it would come to pass that a lot of that work that was laid through our legacy society and our planned giving efforts starts to pay off for the entire state. But the second and most important is leadership. And it starts really with our board of directors and making sure that our reputation as a statewide organization is solid. That we are recognized as a philanthropic leader in our state. So I appreciate your kind words, Rick.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? I think we might be able to hold true to Stephanie's promise of giving part of your lunch hour back.
That's right. Great to see so many of you. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.